Hi there guys, today the 2x4 Chef, and guess what we're making today? Pesto. Why pesto? Pesto is one of the simplest, most incredible flavored things you can make, and it's easy to make, it's inexpensive, it can last for months if you want to keep it in your refrigerator for a few weeks after we make it, or keep it in your freezer and take it out and defrost it. It's a very versatile food because it is a food. It's vegetarian, so it's great to use on anything you want. I use it on fish. I use it on my tomatoes. I eat it straight. Try it with pasta is the best way, is the known way. If you go to an Italian restaurant, pesto is just a classic dish to do it. I do a little bit of a twist with my pesto, and why is that? Well, I like to add a little touch of something different. So what we're going to show you today is that. Let me go through the ingredients with you. Now, basil. It's coming to the end of summer. Basil is now probably available everywhere. If you grow basil yourself, you know your basil plants right now are huge. Plus they're flowering a lot. What does that mean? Well, when you go out and you cut it in the garden, you can see you get these flowers on there and it grows, which is not a bad thing. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you take your basil and take it off the stem. Now, if I want you to know that you have to always clean your basil. Even if you buy it from a store in a package, please take the time to wash it and make sure it's clean. Why is that? Well, when it's out in the garden, obviously you never know what's going to drop on your vegetables, on your herbs. So it's always important to wash your herbs. In a store, even if it's packaged, just be safe. Always be safe with any type of lettuce, green. Always wash. Wash your vegetables. If you get a tomato, like I went and got some tomatoes from the store, they look great, but other people have touched them. You don't know who's touched them, where they've been. Always wash your vegetables. Even if it's a melon, wash the outside. It's a good way to prevent from getting sick, cuts down the bacteria. Just like you wash your hands before you eat, please wash your vegetables and please wash your green leafy stuff, because there's bugs in there, there's dirt in there. There's nothing worse than not cleaning something and you're biting into it and you get a sand or dirt. So that's one thing you really want to be careful with. But we have 2 cups of basil. Now you're saying to me, 2 cups of basil, it doesn't sound like a lot. Well, what you want to do is you want to get, this is my 2-cup measure, and you want to what they call pack it. And I already have, there's 2 ways we could do this, or 3 ways. I fortunately have a food processor and I use it all the time. What you want to do is put your leaves in there and press them down. So I have 2 cups of basil leaves that I've washed already, that are already in my food processor. So they're already ready to go. If you do not have a food processor and you have a blender, you can use a blender. If you don't have any of those, you can try and crush it up in a bowl. It's a little difficult. If you can get a mortar and pestle, what's that? If you've ever been to a Mexican restaurant and they make guacamole in it and they grind it up in a stone, just a big stone like colander, and that's a mortar and pestle. You can use that too. It's basically grinding it up. It's very tedious to grind it up by hand because you have to break the leaves down very fine. If you don't have this equipment, ask a friend if they have a food processor. A lot of people have them. They're easy to borrow. Easy to clean up, very efficient. Or not, use a blender. The key here is you want to grind it up, and I'll show you the consistency, what makes it really nice. You also want to get what the normal nut that we use in pesto is called a pine nut, or a pignoli nut. Now today they have become so expensive. For you in this recipe, you're going to need 3 tablespoons of pignoli nuts. Now you can try and find it if they sell it by the pound. I really don't know if they do, but it's about $19, $24 to $24 a pound depending on where you live. And I'm substituting, using a less expensive nut. I'm using walnuts. Why? Because they taste good, they have a great nutty texture, they're much less expensive. If you have a tree allergy to nuts, You can use sunflower seeds. You can go online and find alternative nuts to use if you do have tree nut allergies. I made a pesto for a friend of mine who's highly allergic to tree nuts, especially pinoli nuts, and I used sunflower seeds, and they work wonderfully. What I did now to make this dish a little more special is I took my 3 tablespoons of walnuts and I toasted my nuts. Now you're like, well, why do you do that? Well, it adds a nice flavor, not smoky as in smoky barbecue, but a nice smoky, nutty brown, and it brings out the oils of the nuts and brings them up to the surface and adds this beautiful flavor. And it is a noticeable difference when you roast something. When you take any type of seed, you can take a fennel seed or dried herbs and roast them, or put them on a very low heat and put them in a pan, and you move them around and make sure that you get all the sides, nicely toasted. The flavor, it brings up the flavors of anything that you're using, and what we call intensifies it. Why? It adds another layer of flavor. And I'll tell you something. Some people won't notice it, but a lot of people will notice that there's something special about your pesto if you toast your nuts. If you don't want to do it, fine. It's no problem. I just decided to do it. It's the way I like to cook. So once again, you have your 3 tablespoons of your nuts, my walnuts. You have a half a cup of finely shredded Parmesan cheese. It's readily available at the store. Here's a really nice brand I got. It was like $4.99 for about 4 to 6 ounces. Now, you can get very, very expensive Parmesan cheese. Where the wedge will cost you $15, $20. It's up to you. I'm on a budget. I like cooking on a budget. That's why I'm showing you alternatives. If you're on a budget, you can buy a small package of walnuts that don't cost a lot of money. You can get a nice piece of Parmesan cheese, and guess what? This will keep for months in the refrigerator if it's properly wrapped up. So you'll always have it and always be able to use it. So we have a 1/4 cup of the cheese. We have 2 cloves of garlic. Now, I already minced them up, so you want your 2 cloves of garlic finely minced. We have 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Right here. Now, how do you measure out to get 3 tablespoons of butter? Well, for those of you who really don't pay attention, and if some of those of you that do, when you buy butter, it has right here, these are the tablespoon marks. So as you can see, I've cut 3 tablespoons of butter that's ready to go. Now, you want the butter to be at what we call room temperature, so it's very, very soft. See the consistency of it is you want it to melt. Basically, it's almost to the point of melting. You don't want the butter solid. It will not work out very well if you do in this recipe. You want a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil, and for those of you who've watched me before at the 2x4 Chef, I went through getting olive oils. Now you can use super expensive olive oils. You can get medium priced olive oils. I like to buy my olive oils 2 different ways. I have my specialty olive oil that I buy, which is expensive, from different parts of the world. It's one of my favorite things is to get different kinds of olive oils. Or you can get really good quality olive oil at a Costco, at a Trader Joe's. They're premium, they're beautiful, they work very well for cooking and very well in your dishes. So your last ingredient that we're going to need is kosher salt. So really, it's very simple to put this together. So we're going to move my block around, and here is. Now you want to have your area clean. I have a bowl for the pesto ready to go, and we're going to put in the ingredients in here. The 2 ingredients we're not going to put in to start is the butter, and the cheese will be the finisher when we're going to do a finisher on this, which is really, really cool. So we're going to take my roasted nuts and we're going to put them in to my food processor. We're going to add in the garlic. The garlic going in. Goes in very easy. Just drop it in there. Now you want to make sure that your garlic is chopped fine. You don't want big pieces of garlic, because sometimes when you cut up the garlic, it's not going to get finely processed. So you really don't want big chunks of garlic. You want an even amount of garlic, and you don't want someone to bite in a big chunk of garlic. Now, with the salt. Salt is a question of taste, but you want to put a good amount of salt in there. So I put 2 big pinches, which is I'd say almost a tablespoon, and we'll put that in there. And then we're gonna put our olive oil in, just like that. 1, 2, 3. How easy is that? And we're gonna move the board over, and we'll bring our food processor out. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to process this until it's smooth. And it doesn't take that long to do. You want to break it down. It takes less than a minute. And we're going to check. And it's a great, great, great consistency. So what we're going to do is now we're going to put it into, you always unplug when you're done. Big rule. Even with the top off, because as you see, this is the safety equipment. What you do is I'll show you real quick when you plug it in. Hear this click? What is that? Well, the processor will not work if you accidentally turn it on unless this is engaged. See that? So it's a safety measure, but rule of thumb, when you're done using any electrical equipment, unplug it. It's just like your stove. Please make sure your stove is off. Now we're gonna shift this over. We're gonna take the blade out. Now there'll be some on the blade, and you're gonna wanna get that into the bowl. And we're gonna see how it's processed now. See the beautiful color. So that's the nuts and the salt and the garlic and all that basil. And we're gonna put it in our bowl here. It's very, very easy to do. It's harder to clean up with this dish than it is to make it, and that's a fact. I love making this. I make this all the time. In fact, I'm going to make another batch because my mother-in-law likes my pesto. So instead of her stealing all of mine, I make her own batch. It's a good thing. If your family likes your cooking, you're in. That's how it works. And we want to get all that out of the food processor. And as you can see, it's beautiful. See the beautiful green color? Now for the fun part. Now what we want to do is we want to fold in, what they call fold in the cheese. So you can pour your cheese in, this, and use a nice spatula. Don't use a spoon. You don't need a spoon, or you can use a spoon, but I like to use spatulas. I think they're much easier. Now you'll see the consistency get a little thick, and why is that? Well, you're putting cheese in here, and you want to make sure it's mixed very well. Classic way is they use their hands. You don't have to use your hands. It's just a technique. We get all of that cheese mixed in together. And now for the final touch. We're going to incorporate the butter. That's why you want it soft. So I'm going to do half of it, cut it in half, and work it in. And you want to work it in all together. Now, it's different. Most recipes do not use butter. Why is that? Well, the butter helps bring a creamy consistency, and when you use it to cook, it breaks it down very, very, very well. And it's really, really, really easy to do. And you mix it together. Voila. And I'm going to get my spoon, give it a little taste. And there you have it. You have a beautiful, simple pesto. Now, oh, that's really good. That's perfect. Now, what we like to do also with pesto is when you want to keep it in the refrigerator, you want to get off the edges, make sure it's really smooth down, and you put a layer of olive oil on the top. And that helps preserve it. Put a piece of plastic over it. You can put it in the refrigerator for about a week like this, or freeze it. What we're going to do later is going to come back. I'm going to show you a really cool recipe that I like to use. It's a great appetizer to use the pesto with, and we'll show you that. And I hope you enjoyed watching me make pesto. Once you get simple and easy, send me an email at 2x4chef. That's 2x4chef@att.net. Drop me an email if you need the recipe, I will send it to you. No problem. Ask me any questions and enjoy. Have a great day. Hey guys, I am back. Now we're going to put our little dinner together. Fortunately, I'm having a guest tonight, and we grilled some salmon, and I'm going to show you a really simple dish to make with the grilled salmon, or you can pan salmon and put it in the oven, and we can use our pesto that we made. So I'm going to show you what I did. We got a really beautiful tomato, and I put it in a pan, sliced it, put it in this pan, and poured olive oil over the tomatoes, and I let it sit in the olive oil for about an hour, which is very different. It's submerged, it extracts the flavor of the tomatoes into the olive oil, and the tomatoes absorb that beautiful olive oil taste. And I took breadcrumbs, which is your basic plain breadcrumbs, or you can use the panko crumbs, and put a little bit of dried thyme and dried oregano and some salt, and I browned them in a pan to give it some crunch and flavor. So it's not just plain. I find just plain breadcrumbs just a little boring. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the tomatoes one by one, and we are going to press them into the breadcrumbs. Now, it's really easy to do, and we just going to have a nice towel just in case we drip. So you take each of the tomatoes out, and I'm going to show you, just drop it in, press it down, flip it over, press it down, and you can see the breadcrumbs from the oil on the tomatoes adhere nicely, and we'll put one on the plate like that. And if you're having a lot of people over, you can give each person one slice tomato or two. And since I'm not going to make a salad tonight, just make it very simple. So we're just going to have simple tomatoes with pesto and a nice piece of grilled salmon. It's very healthy, nutritious. The flavors are amazing. I mean, we eat a lot of salmon here. Why? We like salmon. It's good for you, but we like wild salmon, not farm raised. But we'll talk about that another time. And here's our final tomato. And we'll press that in. Just 1, 2, 3. It's easy. So again, this whole meal is very inexpensive to make. We'll put that other breadcrumb there. Now, also what you can do with the oil, what I like to do is I have my jar. Let me wash my hands off real quick. And we're going to take this oil and we're going to save it. All right? We could use it for salad dressings. We could use it for a marinade. There's no reason to waste it. There's nothing wrong with it because the tomatoes give it a wonderful flavor. It's good to save. There's nothing wrong with it. You always want to be able, if you can, to use some of the things over in other meals, because you can stretch out your cost of your meal much further that way. So the next time I make a salad, I already have some olive oil that's been infused with fresh tomatoes, and I can use that and make a salad dressing out of it. It's just perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this beautiful pesto that's been sitting, and I made earlier. We'll stir it up, because remember, we put that layer of olive oil on top to keep it preserved. And we'll put some of that pesto on top. Really simple. You see the difference in the colors and the flavors are just phenomenal. What we're going to do is just a little bit, clean up our plate a little bit, and we'll take the salmon that was grilled. These are the beautiful 2 pieces of salmon. Put it on there. And the one that got away, like so. And we'll just use a touch of olive oil to finish the dish. which I forgot to take down. That's what happens when you're working in a 2x4 kitchen. You run out of space. Just a little bit. Drizzle on, just like that. It's nice color, a little bit of flavor, more flavor to the dish. And there you go, 2x4 chef. And what I did is I have my fresh pesto with grilled salmon and our infused, olive oil infused tomatoes with toasted breadcrumbs. Hope you enjoy it. Once again, if you'd like the recipe, please send me an email at 2x4chef, that's 2x4chef@att.net. Drop me a line and I thank you, and we will see you soon. Enjoy.